Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome back, focus learners, to another explainer where we break down complex psychological concepts into things that actually make sense. Today, we're looking at a deeply misunderstood topic: high functioning depression. Surprisingly, some of the most highly productive people you know might actually be struggling the absolute most. Why? Well, because their success acts as the perfect camouflage. They are living with this hidden iceberg of depression that just sits quietly, completely out of sight.
Society usually expects depression to look like this highly visible struggle, right? The inability to get out of bed, a complete halting of daily life. But the reality of high-functioning depression is incredibly deceptive. It's heavily masked by a person's ability to successfully go to work, attend school, and hit all their deadlines. To the outside world, this person is holding the whole shebang together. But underneath all that productivity, they're actively hiding a massive amount of pain.
To really wrap our heads around this, we need to look at the clinical anchor for this explainer: dysthymia. Basically, this is a prolonged, persistent state of depression. Now, a person with high-functioning depression might not feel quite as entirely helpless or paralyzed as someone suffering from severe clinical depression. However, it acts like a slow leak. It steadily diminishes their overall quality of life and completely drains their interest in absolutely everything, notably including social events with friends and family. So the crucial point is captured perfectly by this iceberg metaphor. The tip of the iceberg, the tiny percentage that the rest of the world actually gets to see, is them functioning in public. They're showing up, they're doing the work. But that massive block of ice hidden underwater, that represents what happens the absolute second their daily responsibilities are met. Once the necessary tasks are checked off, they immediately withdraw. They retreat into private isolation, simply because maintaining that public facade requires literally every ounce of energy they possess. Section 1, the relentless inner critic. Let's look at the hidden struggles.
All right, the first sign is this obsessive concern with time. Imagine this for a second. You're hitting your targets, you're achieving your goals, you're fulfilling all your obligations. Yet, despite all this outward success, you're plagued by a constant nagging feeling that you are completely wasting your time. Even if you take up a new job or a fun new hobby, it immediately feels useless. You are constantly wondering if the time you invest in your activities is even worth it in the first place.
And because you feel like you aren't really accomplishing anything worthwhile, well, that breeds sign number 2, relentless self-criticism. And I'm not talking about standard self-improvement here. This is punishing. You set impossibly high expectations for yourself. And because those expectations are literally unreachable, you continually push yourself to your absolute limit. Which leads right into sign number 3, crushing overthinking. It doesn't matter if a problem is massive or incredibly minor. Someone with high-functioning depression will find themselves overanalyzing the situation to a catastrophic degree. The thoughts just race and loop relentlessly until eventually the pressure gets so high that the person simply cracks under their own mental weight. Just take a breath and let this sink in. I am wasting my time, and I am not accomplishing anything. And this brilliantly illustrates the devastating weight of the inner critic we've been talking about. Imagine this harsh internal monologue playing on repeat all day, every day, while you are simultaneously smiling and handing in a report at work. It is an incredibly heavy burden to carry in silence. Moving on to section 2, sadness and feeling misunderstood. The emotional disconnect. Why does no one see you struggling? Seriously, if you have ever felt this way, I want you to know it's a completely valid experience. It's so frustrating, right? You're fighting this daily battle, and yet everyone around you just assumes you're doing great. So why does this happen? Well, it happens because of sign number 4, feeling misunderstood. Since a high-functioning person can maintain their job, take care of their house, and handle all their adult responsibilities, the people around them naturally assume everything is totally fine. Society constantly underestimates the sheer scale of their anxiety. Friends and family might completely unintentionally minimize the person's feelings, simply because the individual isn't acting like a typical depressed patient. Think about that. Their success is literally used as evidence against their suffering. And because they feel so misunderstood, they're left all alone with sign number 5, persistent sadness and emptiness. Now look, it's totally normal to feel sad from time to time, but we are talking about feeling chronically empty most of the time. This is a massive red flag. If you're participating in supposedly fun activities, things that absolutely should bring you joy, and you still just feel hollow and sad, that is a strong indicator of functional depression. Section 3, unhealthy escapes from reality. Let's look at behavioral escapes. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these behaviors group together. Because the person is exhausting themselves playing a role all day, they fall into sign number 6, unhealthy coping mechanisms. They might turn to alcohol, drugs, or develop self-destructive habits just to handle the intense stress of daily life. But then, right alongside that, there's sign number 7, escapism through hobbies. Playing excessive video games or constantly binge-watching TV series. These seem like incredibly normal, everyday activities, don't they?
But here is the catch. It's not about the activity itself. It is entirely about escaping the reality. Whether it's turning to chemical substances or just drowning yourself in a seemingly harmless hobby like gaming, the core mechanism is the exact same. These are desperate survival mode attempts to mentally check out, to stop the endless overthinking, and to escape a life that feels deeply exhausting.
Finally, Section 4, beneath the iceberg, finding the root cause. Fulfilling your responsibilities does not mean you are fine. High-functioning depression is notoriously difficult to spot because the sufferers are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Because you don't act like a typical depressive, you might actually trick yourself into thinking you are perfectly fine. But let's be absolutely clear. Living your life feeling constantly empty, sad, and relentlessly self-critical is not normal, and it is for sure not a state you just have to accept. So I want to leave you with a final thought today. Are you just functioning, or are you actually living? If you relate to these 7 signs we covered, the obsessive time concern, the relentless self-criticism, the crushing overthinking, feeling totally misunderstood, the persistent sadness, the unhealthy coping mechanisms, and the escapism through hobbies, the key is to try and find the root cause of your symptoms. That is the true path to achieving genuine happiness, not just keeping up a productive facade. If you've experienced these symptoms, or if you've found methods to recover and thrive, jump in and share your stories